Hi there, this is Kathy Heckendorn with Cape, New Mexico. We're going to talk today about what is your day-to-day life going to look like? How can you make this homeschool a success? We can talk about curriculum, we can talk about assessment, we can talk about the legal aspect of homeschooling, but these are the things that if you have those set up, everything just seems to go so much smoother in your homeschool. So these are the things we're going to talk about today, the day-to-day. All right, so let's get started here. So one of the first things that we need to look at is what is our plan going to be? Let's get our plan developed, because having a good plan in place is going to help everything go so much smoother. I remember hearing years and years ago that you can those who fail to plan to fail. So if you don't have a plan in place, you're going to just see chaos erupt more than what you really want to on a day-to-day basis. So what do I mean by that? Well, the first thing is you want to prepare your family. So what is this going to look like? If you're new to homeschooling, if you're starting with kids that are just starting kindergarten, it's going to look a little bit different as you prepare your children than it is if you are pulling your children out of public school with the situation that's going on in our state right now. Maybe you're working. Maybe you and your spouse are both working from home, which that totally changes everything, the dynamics in your house. So just talking about how is this going to look, how are we going to make this work, is going to help you guys deal with those conflicts and those challenges that come up. So how are you and your spouse going to handle the responsibilities? Homeschooling is not just a quick throw it in like you would a side salad. This is going to take a lot of time. It may not take as long as what you think it's going to, but it is going to change what your daily schedule looks like at home. So just kind of talking through, maybe you're both going to then, dinner now is going to look different. Handling house cleaning is going to look different. Handling shopping is going to look a little bit different. So just talk about this. What is this going to look like when mom or dad, one of you, is now spending 3 to 5 hours a day going over assignments, helping your children, doing different things, depending on the age of your children and depending on how many children you have. So just talk about that. Another thing is prepare your children. How are their days going to be different from maybe friends, neighbors, cousins? How's it going to be different from when they went to school? Because homeschooling does not have to be school at home. What they did in the public school is not the way it's going to look now that they're doing homeschool. It's going to encompass so much more than that. So just talk about that and help them to understand, hey, things are going to look a little bit different. Just because your friends are outside playing doesn't mean that you necessarily are going to be able to be outside playing right now. Maybe your schedule for your calendar of your homeschool is not going to follow exactly what the other neighbor family's schedule is going to look like. So you just need to talk about those things and prepare yourself. What are you giving up? Maybe you have been working part-time and now you've given up that part-time job and you're bringing your children home. Maybe things aren't going to change that much for you, but things like leisurely coffee breaks, that's just not going to happen with your kids around you. And maybe you haven't been working outside the home, but you at least were at home, but that you could get meals and laundry and cleaning done. And now all of a sudden your time is being taken up educating your children, which is a wonderful thing, but just understanding that your day is going to look a little bit different sometimes just helps us get that right mindset. But I also want to encourage you to think about what you're gaining. Homeschool typically takes less time than what it does for them to be in the classroom. Your kids may have been going to public school 6 to 8 hours a day, 6 to 7, depending on bus rides and things like that, or age of your children. Extracurricular activities, a lot of those are being stopped right now. You guys are going to gain a lot of time at home to pursue things that you're interested in, to just develop relationships with everybody. So there are a lot of really good things that you're going to gain. So be thinking of those and write those things down as well so that you can look forward to those. All right, now your school plans. I see I've talked with a lot of moms that just get very, very frustrated when they're homeschooling because they haven't realized that if they can sit down once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, and just look at what does the next school week look like? What are the activities that we're going to be doing with this particular subject? Or maybe it's a science experiment is going to be coming up for this child. Do I have everything that we need to do that science experiment? There's nothing more frustrating for everybody if the child is supposed to be doing the science experiment so that they can then answer these questions, and it takes baking soda. And lo and behold, this happens to be the week that you're out of baking soda. But if you just take the time to look ahead and plan for the upcoming week, things can go so much smoother that way. So what do I mean by that? Go ahead and plan. Maybe for me, it was every Friday afternoon. Every Friday afternoon, that's when my kids could either catch up on homework if they hadn't finished some of their assignments, or else they had free time that they could just do some extra reading. It might have been when they did a craft that they were really interested in doing. And I would sit there and look at the upcoming week and kind of make a plan. And I'm one of those kind of weird people, but we'll talk about some of the other things that I did during that planning time. But just having a designated date, and maybe it isn't Friday, maybe it's Saturday morning, and the other parent takes the kids and they go to the park, or they go for a ride and go get an ice cream. It doesn't really matter, but just make sure that you set aside a little bit of time. It doesn't have to take a lot of time, but just knowing what you have coming up for the upcoming week will help things go so much smoother. Lesson plans. I liked doing even just a basic lesson plan. And as my kids got older, they actually liked it as well, because I would do their week's worth of lessons on, I've done it in Microsoft Word. I did it in Excel. I've written it out on a piece of paper. I did 3x5 cards when my kids were a lot younger. They knew on Monday we're going to be doing page whatever in math. And as they got older and they became more independent in their own education, it was easy for them to just look at their assignment sheet and know, oh, this is what I need to get done today. And those that were self-starters could just hop to it. And then that gives you more time to work with the younger kids or those that need a little extra help. But you decide what works for you. There are school planners that you can purchase out there. If that kind of thing really appeals to you, just find something that works, notebook, paper, anything like that. Just figure out what works for you and go ahead and stick to it. Have a location for the school items. I've heard so many parents that when I would sit down and visit with them, what is the challenge that you're having? A lot of time it was Johnny keeps losing his math book. And I'm one of those. I mean, how many people lose their keys? Different things like that. But if you have a location for everything, and if you learn to just put them back where they belong, that will sure help things go so much smoother in your school day. And as far as location, not everybody has a big house where they can have a designated schoolroom. We've done different things where we just had one bookshelf that was just designated for school, and every child got a different shelf on the bookshelf. We had another season of life where we downsized to a much smaller home, and there was not space for that extra bookshelf. And I found these little movable little tote things, and everybody would put their school books in those, and they had little side pockets that they could put their pencils for the older kids or calculators. But just having a location for all of the school items, put them back at the end of the day, and things are going to go so much smoother the next morning when you get started. Plan for breaks, whether it's daily breaks. Plan for, you're going to take a lunch break, especially if you have littles. Make sure that you plan that, hey, 10 o'clock, 10:30, we're going to stop and we're going to have a snack. Or maybe it's the afternoon, they need to have a little bit of time to run around. Go ahead and plan for that. And if you make that mental decision that, hey, we're going to break up our day here, here, and here, it just gives you something to look forward to, gives your kids something to look forward to, and you're not frustrated going, why can't we get this done? And here the poor child is sitting there saying, I've been sitting in this chair for 4.5 hours. They get those breaks when they're going to camp, when they're in the public school. So go ahead and plan on those for your own homeschool. Schedule in extra activities. I don't know how your extracurricular activities are going right now. Maybe your kids do take music lessons still, or maybe they're still able to do a particular soccer. I know there are a lot of kids that are still doing soccer right now. But make sure that you plan that in and hey, on Tuesday, this is the day that we're all going to go out to do grocery shopping. Just build it into your schedule so that all of a sudden when it happens and you take everybody away, then the end of the day or maybe the end of the week, you realize you guys didn't get all of your school done. Maybe it was because you didn't schedule into their school assignments. Hey, you're going to be gone all day Tuesday because we've got doctor's appointments. Well, don't plan a heavy load for school, so schedule those things in. Have a plan for the littles. If you are homeschooling multiple age children and they are all school age and they all have school assignments, that's wonderful. But understand that the time that it will take for your seventh grader is going to be much longer than what it will take for your kindergartner or maybe your first or second grader. The younger children are going to be done in 2 hours or less. And now what do? You don't want to be hearing, I'm bored, I'm bored, I'm bored. So go ahead and make a plan ahead of time. What I did when my kids were younger and even when they were before they started school, I had a special tub that I had some special activities that they could do only during school time. So I would get that tub out of those special toys. And for my kids, it was Play-Doh. They loved Play-Doh. And then I also found these kind of cardboard things that they could stitch. And then I found these addition wrap-ups that they could do these wrap up the little plastic holder thing based on what the addition was or their ABCs. Just find some different little things. Maybe it's just even coloring time. They can pull out this set of nice colors and this paper during school time. So they're sitting there and they're entertained, or maybe they're on the floor playing with that particular toy that they only get to play with, but just have a plan for the littles. If you have infants or young children that are still taking naps, utilize nap time to actually do school with the older ones. School will go so much faster when you're doing it one-on-one with one or two children, and you can actually get almost a whole day's worth of school done while your little ones are napping. So go ahead and find out what works for you, play around with some different things, but just keep in mind, if you have a plan for the littles and they know what they're supposed to be doing, it'll make it much smoother for you when you're working with the older ones. Be prepared to throw it in the trash when it isn't working. It's okay. What worked for one season, it just wouldn't work the next season. What worked with this child just would not work with this child. I had one child that sitting there and playing with Play-Doh and sculpting was just a wonderful activity. The other one, not so much. So just realize that what is working right now may not work later on. It's okay. You didn't do anything wrong. It's just a different season. So don't hesitate. Throw it over and start again. And that brings me to the most important part of your whole homeschool journey. Plan for grace. Give yourself lots of grace. You will make mistakes. You're not going to be able to do this perfectly. None of us have. School teachers in the public school system don't do it perfectly. We can't expect ourselves to do everything perfectly. There are going to be really good days and there are going to be really bad days. We used to sometimes just have pajama days where we had several really, really rough days. Maybe I had kids that were really, really struggling. And my husband said, you know what? It sounds like tomorrow needs to be a pajama day. My kids loved those. We would just shut the door. We wouldn't go anywhere. We'd stay in our pajamas and we would read books together. Maybe we would watch a movie. We would play board games, and we just backed away from the things that were just stressing us with the schoolwork. Remember, learning takes place in lots of different formats. If you're playing a board game, you're still learning. You're learning problem solving. You're learning skills to get along, to work together. Utilize those opportunities. Reading. When you sit down and you're reading for a couple of hours, maybe you read aloud while the little ones, maybe you're playing with Legos or they're drawing while you're sitting there reading. Pick books that are going to help educate them. And I'm talking historical books, or maybe it's just a really good children's story that then you can talk about the characters and what were the struggles. What would you do if you had been Anne? What would you do if you found yourself abandoned on an island? Help them to start thinking and do some problem solving. That is learning. Maybe you end up spending a day making some frozen meals to take to grandma. Those are all opportunities to learn. School is not limited to what you do in a book. So just go ahead and take those times and realize it's okay. It's okay to make mistakes, and you are not going to be able to cover everything. If you just stop and think about how much knowledge we have, Why do we expect ourselves to be able to cover everything that we think we can get that child? You're still learning, I'm hoping, Mom and Dad. If you're still learning at whatever season of life you're in, it's okay for our kids to not learn everything in 1 year, 1 week, 1 month in their 12 years of school. There's still opportunities to learn, and they're going to continue learning as they go on. You are not going to mess up your kids for life. That was probably one of my biggest fears. I didn't want to see them as adults and they just couldn't succeed. My kids are varied in the activities that they are pursuing as adults. I've homeschooled 4 children. I've graduated 4 children. They range from the age of 20 to almost 30. They have different fields for their careers, and they are pursuing things that they enjoy. And I think they're actually pretty neat adults. They're messed up, but you know what? We all are messed up to some degree, and we all have our own level of dysfunction, and it's okay. We're not going to just totally ruin our kids because this one day didn't go well, or even this one semester or year didn't go well. Your kids are still going to be learning in spite of you. So the most important thing that you can do is just plan for grace and look forward to the next day and enjoy the time that you have with your kids. Yes, you can. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. That was my favorite verse and the one that I just kept going back to. So have a really good day, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video.